Well, good evening. I'm going to resume doing some videos again after a couple week pause. I was thinking to start with, even though I didn't finish Revelation chapter 11, there's one more verse to go, and of course there's more I could say about all of them, but especially the last few verses. I just feel I need to definitely get Revelation 12 addressed. So Revelation 12 starts with 12:1 saying, "And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars." Now, first off, the only Bible lesson that we ever got, that for the 19 years that I was with T and Do, was when Do called us together for a meeting without T, and T was in her vehicle at the time, and that was extremely rare. I mean, it happened maybe 2 other times before that, or maybe even just after that. Yeah, I think that Do started a meeting without T. So, but you can understand why T wouldn't be there is because Do was going to be talking about who T is in the prophecy. And he told us that T was the woman in this Revelation 12:1. Now, I don't remember anything else about what he said, about the little interpretation he did of those first couple verses, because I just wasn't tuned into that. But I knew that T was Do's older member, and therefore Do's Heavenly Father, and therefore also the one that Jesus referred to as the Father. I knew that, I believed that 100%, and I still do. And now I see the evidence of it after the fact, because we weren't studying Scripture to figure it out. So I just took it, I didn't make anything of it when he read that Scripture to us and told us that she was the woman. So then after I left the group, having failed my test that I'm not going to talk about right now because I've talked about it many times before. I don't want to spend time on that. I didn't get into Scripture until like about 15 years ago. Actually, right after the 9/11 attacks. That's when I started to examine both politics and world events and the internet a great deal, and Scripture, to see where, well, I didn't really even, it was even a little, well, doesn't matter when it all started for me. That's beside the point. Let's get on to the Bible translation interpretation that I hope is coming from Do's mind, T and Do's mind, because because I don't remember anything else besides, like I said that, besides that T is the woman. So based on that, let's look at what woman actually means. If we look at, where is that? Right there. Now we can see that Oh, that's the wrong one. Darn it. There it is. Okay, so we can see that it says the woman comes from the Greek word gune. And it says that in the Strong's Concordance that Greek and Hebrew dictionary that probably from the base of ginome, which they're translating as a woman, but specially a wife, a spouse. I would venture to expand that to. Ginome says to cause to be generate. To cause to be generate. So that's what a woman in the human kingdom has the capacity to do, generate life. They're not actually generating the life itself, they're facilitating the life generation by having their egg fertilized. So women don't create life. They don't create babies. They facilitate the development of babies, baby humans. So what this woman is doing as a generator of life, also that word ginome is, it's actually jin-om-ahi is the way you pronounce that, I guess. Jin-om-ahi in the Greek. And it also means to become, come into being. So this person that they're talking about brings other individuals into being. That's birthing other individuals, just like human birth. And Tian Do always talked about how the process of graduating into the next level was a birthing. And they referred to themselves as midwives in that birthing process. And that they were necessary for the birthing process to be accomplished. Otherwise, they said they wouldn't come. They wouldn't have come incarnate because they hated here. And they hated here because they're so aware of what else there is in their environment, in their society, among their peers, and among their fellow members of the level above human. So since they have enough of that mind in their vehicles, then nothing of the human kingdom is satisfactory to them, and what they see most of, well, what is most hideous about the human kingdom stands out. The way people act, the deceit, and the manipulation that goes on, and the power mongering, and the profiteering, and the jealousies, and the coveting of what others have and do, and the wars, and the killing, and all those things add up to the human kingdom having become what Tian Do called a snake pit. And it's not anything against the reptile snakes that I'm aware of. They didn't talk about that. But for people that are, animal lovers and they think snakes are beautiful creatures, I'm not saying that they don't have their value, of course. But they also may be actually developed because of or they may have just been the creature that the next level actually forced the Luciferian space alien fallen angel souls to be attached to. Maybe the next level can attach a soul to a living being, like a snake or any animal they want to. So we're not the ones that designed all this, so we don't have any idea. And if snakes lived underground, that would be another way of the manifestation of the one of the depictions of hell, being under the earth, where you don't see the light, because the people that are in hell, the souls that are in hell, they can't see the light anymore. So all these little things, all these different interpretations and ways of thinking, all probably have degrees of validity in the design, because don't forget, I shouldn't forget, that the next level designed it all the nuts and bolts of everything in the human kingdom. Everything that we can become aware of was provided to us to become aware of by the next level, when they actually seeded the garden, when they set up the atmosphere, when they designed the environment, when they designed the thought environment as well, which I don't know exactly how that's done, but I do know that thoughts can be projected into an environment. Christine Doe said that the Luciferians knew how to do that. They could project their thoughts to humans. And there was this movie that was called They Live that Tiendo had us watch one time that was about that. And it showed how, like, I think it was taking place in Las Vegas, maybe. And it showed how there were aliens that were walking around that were human, that looked just like humans, and they acted pretty much like humans. So nobody could really tell the difference. Except, and that on the billboards, where they're advertising Coca-Cola and whatever other products are being advertised on billboards, there were subliminal messages. And actually thoughts, words, like behave and things like that, in order to keep the humans unaware of the space alien presence as they were going about their business, taking more and more control and using humans more and more, which is pretty accurate. And so, according to Tiendo, it's pretty accurate according to Tiendo, which I believe then is pretty accurate. So, as accurate as you can get, without them here to explain it more. And the woman also is the assembler, like it says right here. Be assembled. So this is a woman, an assembler, that's clothed with the sun. Okay, now an assembler also is bringing something to pass, like the fulfillment of prophecy. Isn't it interesting how each of these definitions can have, and it's a continuation of the Jesus task, which the Father was very involved in. Just like with the Moses task, Jehovah was very involved in. And that was the name that the father at that time gave to Moses when he asked for a name. He said, I am that I am. And I am means existing one. And so I don't know how be divided, but be divided, I can look at that as that that T's arrival and her task was going to also be what starts the whole judgment period and divides the sheep from the goats, and takes the flowers and separates them from those that can become flowers, and separates them from the weeds. And that it's the ending. It's also the ending of the end time. And it's a fall for T. I mean, she's falling from the kingdom of heaven. That's why they came via crashed spacecrafts. And I don't know if T came that way or not, but she came by a spacecraft, I know that, because I believe T and Do said that. I have no doubt about that they said that. I don't just believe it, I know it. I know they said that. And so in any way you look at it, for T to come into this snake pit was a lower state to come into, a lower level to come into. It'd be like a human going to be full-time, looking like other chimpanzees, but knowing that, but awakening to the fact that they were in the human kingdom. So they had a human mind, and they were operating through chimpanzees or dogs, or domesticated animals. That was the example that T and Do gave. Dogs and horses were the two examples that T and Do used for human vehicles. And they also called horses the spacecrafts that they traveled in the next level. They referred to our cars as horses. Like we had, like when a car needed repair, so it was in the shop, like getting a brake job or something, then they would say that, jokingly, but honestly, that the car was in the horse pistol. They always had like funny little terms for things. The horse pistol. And so I think I said enough about the word woman. Now, there appeared is from the word, and appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman, from the word optamoehi. And that's from the primary optimei, I guess, optimei, something like that, I'm not sure. Optamahi. Okay. Which it says right here, which is used for and intenses, and both as an alternate of horeo, which means to gaze. And notice how optam is like the same preface as ophthalmology, which has to do with the eyes. So we're talking about that the appearance is going to be something that's visual, has to do with the eyes, something that we can gaze. Because John is watching this at the time, and he's in a human vehicle. And so he's being shown what he can see. He's seeing this with his eyes. Now, I'm not saying that you can't see with your eyes like in a dream. You may still be seeing with your eyes, even though your eyes are closed. But I don't know if you all have experience with certain dreams, but wow, I have so many experiences with dreams that are just as if I'm like in group organizations, working with people, and I see all the details and all the colors, and people are responding to me, and I'm responding to them. We're doing things like you know, events. You know, it's. I mean, I think it must compare to what people call lucid dreaming. But I'm not trying to do it when I go to bed. So I don't know where it's coming from. And of course I've had a lot of dreams with T, and a few with T, and several with Doe, and a number with different classmates at different times. And I don't think I've ever had the same classmate in more than one dream, come to think of it. But I've probably had 10 or 12 classmates in a combination of dreams, which I haven't had in a long time, any dreams. Well, I had a few but they just weren't clear, like the dreams I had for a while there. Anyway, so to gaze. So we're going to be able to see the woman, and understand that it's a great wonder. Because seeing is also understanding. If we come down here, I think we can. But they're saying that it's well, they're giving it different forms of optime here. But then at the end they say appear, look, see, show, self. Show self. So, and there show self a great wonder in heaven. Okay? So since we can't, the order of words is reversed in the Hebrew, and I'm not sure now if I remember if it's reversed in the Greek, but it can be. It is in other European languages, so, or Middle Eastern languages. So, so you could say, woman appeared, or woman shows self. Okay? So so T is showing herself by expressing what's on her mind. I'm just so hot all of a sudden. And well, that's probably enough for appeared. And then great does also mean big, loud, mighty, high, large. Has a wide application, it says here. Very wide application. Fearful, like could be like awe-inspiring, or feared, as in fearing the Lord, because we can't break the rules of the Lord all the time, knowingly, and expect that there aren't consequences to our actions. Doesn't mean that we're going to unnecessarily be condemned to eternal damnation, but and recycling. That's all dependent on what we say and do in this lifetime, as with all spirits and souls. So, but we can't assume anything. And the next level, when they're recycling, those weeds don't want to be recycled, so they're in fear. And so right now, all the humans that are weeds in the garden, they have a lot of fear. And that's what prompts them to do a lot of the things that they do, like stimulate the 9/11 attacks, which I believe were stimulated from inside to some degree. Probably a big degree, I think. And it was just some person, ex-CIA agent, that was reported. I mean, I imagine it could be fake news, but I don't think so. Because there were some things in the article that I read about this agent that came out that, for instance, he used the word for the project that he was assigned, which was to bring down World Trade Center 7. With explosives, because he was an explosives expert in his past. And he had 3 other agents assigned with him for this task, and they did it by bringing in a whole bunch of explosive, thousands of pounds of thermite, a kind of thermite that would actually gut the whole building, so then it would collapse in on itself. Which they set those charges off while the World Trade Centers were, after they were hit. I don't know if it was after one of them or both of them collapsed that they set them off, or at the same time as they were collapsing, maybe they set them off. I know there were a lot of reports of pops. And come to think of it, I wonder if they did that to cover for the explosions that happened in the World Trade Center that the firemen heard. Some of them that were inside the place heard them and got out, or were right outside when they happened, and they heard the explosions. And you can see in the video, some of the videos, you can see like puffs of smoke coming out from the sides of the building where those explosions were allegedly happening. So I hadn't thought about this this thing that might have been actually a leak to cover for that one, to cover for those explosions, because the guy said in the article that I read that they were happening during the World Trade Center attacks. So. And he also said that the name of the project was New Century, which was really interesting in the fact that in 1990, and he said 1997 was the start of that project. Between 1997 and 2001 was when that project was designed. That he didn't say, how much more, he didn't indicate that he was part of any other project. He said it was compartmentalized, so you didn't know what anybody else was doing. You only knew what you were assigned to do. And he said at that time, the CIA that he was a part of were taking all their orders from the higher-ups, which apparently is not happening now. That was the insinuation. Or maybe it didn't happen in the past either, at some points, who knows. But, and he, which that also would get the CIA a little off the hook, wouldn't it? If they were just following orders. So this guy was supposedly on his deathbed, and he's supposedly not dead yet, but he's been given like a week or two to live. And so he was making this confession. Because he said, well, back to that being called the new century. Is that what I said it was? Yeah, it goes back to 1997, where there was a committee formed that was called Progress for a New American Century. And in that committee were members, I believe, Rumsfeld, Cheney, Wolfowitz, and then some other names that I don't really remember. But I know George W. Bush wasn't among them. So he might actually have not known about some of this, or the details of it, or or when it was going to happen. But I don't know. Maybe they didn't. If he didn't know, maybe they didn't trust that he could keep his mouth shut. And not say something when he was high on cocaine or something. I don't know if he was in office, but I'm not accusing him of that. I've never seen anything reported like that, so I shouldn't say it. But not that there's anything wrong with being high on cocaine, if that's what you want to do. I mean, but I'm just, I guess I made a joke there that's, I don't know if Tiendo would like that joke or not. But I'm getting a little sense that they kind of did maybe like it. But I don't know. Maybe that's influences telling me that. I'm not invested in that being a good joke, so it doesn't really matter to me. Anyway, but so the committee of for the New American Century, they produced a document, and that document was called Rebuilding America's Defenses. And in that document, which I read, which is still available online, and you can get it through Sybil Edmonds, and she's on YouTube, because she's making it publicly available. I don't know if it's available in the same places it used to be available, and I'm not sure what that was, but I think it was some kind of government website that had it. But it was probably a conspiracy website. But anyway, I read about it somewhere, and then I saw the document, and I'm pretty sure it's a legit document. Although these days you can never tell, right? But that can go awful far, that idea that everything's a false flag and everything's a false document, and everything's a false picture. I mean, we're getting to that place for sure. But I think what's happened up until that point, and all the stuff that came out immediately after 9/11, I don't think it was nearly that much false stuff coming out. Because 1997, that's when Tiendo left. And Tiendo always said that when they left, then the next level would be no longer holding back what needed to happen on this planet. They were protecting the United States, especially, from internal wars and the kind of surveillance state that we have now that's expanding all the time, though we don't necessarily know about it. They said that was going to all take place after they left, when they got out of the way. Because the next level wanted to keep that from happening while the classroom was in progress, so the classroom would have time to operate without being under the criticism of more humans. Because nowadays, humans are like calling the police for every little thing that they see that might be suspicious. More than ever before, I think, in this country, in the United States. So I don't think it was fabricated stuff then, especially. And, like the fabrication of the news that's happening now, and the way the documents are being manipulated, and words are being, like I saw a picture of Tom Hanks with a whole bunch of words on his shirt. that were kind of like, I believe in science, and and they were interesting. Love is love, Anyway, but someone pointed out that posted this, that you couldn't see any of the wrinkles in the shirt, and that it was a very poor Photoshop job. And when I looked at it again, I could see what he was saying. I could see how the text stood out from his T-shirt. And maybe because he suggested it. Okay, I'm subject to that same kind of suggestion, that sometimes you can see things more when somebody suggests it. And that's the idea with these false flags. You get somebody that looks at the Sandy Hook shooting massacre of all those children, and then someone writes an article about how they saw the same picture of one of the students in Pakistan, or 2 years later, how could he have been killed twice in the Pakistan shooting of kids or different age groups in Pakistan? And it looked like the same picture. I saw the comparison. But they'll take one little thing like that, or even one or two or three or four or five little tiny things that were little anomalies or little obscure kind of forms of potential evidence of something being a little strange with the story. And they'll take a little bit of that, and then there'll be people that'll be walking around saying that nobody died in Sandy Hook, and they're all liars, all the local people are bribed, and that it was basically a CIA thing in order to the Democrats that were behind to bring about gun control. And sure, the parents were calling for gun control after that, because what else are they going to do when they lost their kids and they feel like they want to, they're angry and upset and sad and frightened and everything, all the emotions that are going through when you're firsthand part of something like that, a tragedy like that. That was a tragedy. And internal terrorism. So, and there were obituaries and a number of different funeral homes, and you can look up each of those kids, and you can see their parents' names and what funeral home they went to, and to make all that up for 20 kids and 6 adults, and then to make it up all the other ramifications of that for the parents, and where they lived, and the community, and all the articles that were written about them, and what they said and did, and how one of the kids was in an open casket so they could show what damage the bullets did, and they tore his whole jaw away from his face. And and that and then how do you make all that up and expect to get away with it? I don't know. It's but there's people that are like glued to that, so that the San Bernardino terrorist attack, immediately they were coming out the day later. I saw it. They were coming out saying that was a false flag because of this and because of that, because of this and that, and yet there might have been some kind of an FBI or a CIA setup of the killers and the shooters, because we know the FBI was doing that kind of thing. I mean, they've done it many times, and we've seen a lot of the prosecutions that came from it. So they could have known that was going to happen at that point. And they could have had a team on board, just like they had a team in 9/11 there in New York, a couple days before the 9/11 attack. A team from ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. So the disinformation campaign is probably as intense and planned as the event that's planned, when whatever it is. And so the false flag part of 9/11 was that it was cooked up entirely by Osama bin Laden and a few other people that cooked it up. And they may have cooked it up, but they may have also been suggested by the CIA that they could get away with something like that. And maybe that's all they needed to do. And then when they were given some funding through the Pakistani ISI, they could have, kind of monitored it. They could have had an inside guy with Osama bin Laden the whole time. They do that all the time. They get inside people. Arabs. Maybe it was a Saudi. I don't know. But see, now they can almost tell the truth. And the same population that couldn't conceive of that wouldn't believe it was the truth. They would believe it was a false story, the false press. Which, of course, there is a lot of false press. I mean, there's a lot of half-truths and poor reporting and mistakes and opinions put into the press and headlines made into, and I have first-hand experience with that. Not only with the whole story about Heaven's Gate, but with my own press that I've done over the years, with Time Magazine and Newsweek and Inside Edition recently, and more to come, because I've given some more interviews recently that are going to be coming out in October. Some of them might be very detailed about life in the group, because that's what they told me they wanted for a podcast that is 8 episodes long. It's going to be 5 hours, all about well, I think I'm one of the main sources for that. I don't know how much they'll use from me, but anyway, so get off me again. Get back into this. The document that they wrote also called for that they needed an event like Pearl Harbor in order to motivate the public to rebuild America's defenses by increasing the military budget and expenditures so that they could fight a two-front war. And so what happened? They got a two-front war because of 9/11, Afghanistan and Iraq. And they wanted to go into Iraq before Afghanistan, because there were people that wanted to go all the way to Baghdad, even during the Gulf War. But Bush Sr. didn't want to do that. But people thought that Bush Sr. was making a mistake, and his staff, because they didn't want to have to rebuild the nation. But these other hawks, they were ready to go all the way. And so they planned it ahead of time. So this was all thought out. And if you look at all the evidence of all the ways that the military was standing, the Air Force was standing down when those airliners, and And I mean, the list is very, very long of all the insinuations and evidences of foul play in that whole thing, and from the American side, and maybe involving other governments as well. So that's what was false about that. That, you know, anyway, carrying on enough about that. But, well, part of the reason I'm bringing up 9/11 is because I believe that's in Revelation 11, where it says that it's well after the ascension of the two witnesses and their crew ascend in their soul bodies out of this environment, or if they could have ascended with their bodies, which Doe left that up to T, whether she was going to heal their bodies and take them up with their bodies if T wanted to make that kind of event at that time, or take them with their bodies and give them another task on the Earth somewhere, or on a spacecraft somewhere where they might use those bodies for a while before they were moved into their new bodies in the next level. So Doe was prepared for that because he knew that that doing the task for his older member meant not doing anything that would make it hard for T to put the next step into motion, whatever T wanted it to be, because T and Doe always knew that there were a lot of things going on the planet that they didn't know about. It was even planned that they wouldn't know about them, because if they knew about a lot of them, it would interfere with their task. I'm not going to talk about that anymore, but because I really don't know what more to say about it anyway, but except for speculation on some of the other things they said. But sometimes it's hard to pin it down, you know, and I can get off track easily by trying to explain things that I really don't understand that well. Which probably does more harm than good if anybody ends up repeating some of the things I say. Which I try very hard not to do that, and that's why I try to catch myself, and I ask T and Doe to help me catch myself, and the crew to help catch myself. Actually, I shouldn't say crew, because I'm not looking to the crew. The crew is working for T and Doe. And so it's like, you know, the Catholics praying to saints, which is totally off track. So I think I've finished enough with that part. So they're going to see this generator of the end times, generator of new life. And it's going to be a great wonder. Now, great isn't used, is used very sparingly throughout the book of Revelations. Revelation, the book of the Revelation, which is many revelations. Revealing is what that means. And even says in Luke that Jesus talked about how certain things were going to happen after he was revealed. And I probably should go back to that at some point and look at that a little better to refresh my memory. Because I did write about it in the book, but now I can't remember exactly what part of prophecy that was in the Jesus gospel prophecies, which we can trust were from the next level. T and Doe said that. So, and there appeared a great wonder in heaven. Now, they're saying that the wonder in heaven actually See, the word in isn't actually it says, oh, wrong place. Oh, actually in is in here. So let's see what in says. It's a great wonder in heaven, which also means about heaven. A great wonder about heaven. That's an interesting way to see it. And that's the first definition that they give here after the colon. See, after the colon here is where they're, I mean, they give you a general idea here too, but then different ways of translating it here. But so it's denoting a position. The word en, is a primary preposition denoting fixed position in place, time, or state. State meaning like a state of consciousness, I believe, is what they're talking about there. Because otherwise it wouldn't be place, time, and state. And by implication, instrumentality. So they're saying that this great wonder, that heaven is an instrument of heaven. The woman is going to be seen as a great and big instrument and miraculous. I think wonder is also miraculous. See, miracle? Miracle, sign, a big sign about heaven. Or for the sake of heaven, which is true too. In other words, for the will of heaven, for the will of thou, our Father in heaven. Thy will be done on earth. And for the purpose of giving self wholly to heaven. And all because of heaven. Great wonder because of heaven. When they say heaven like that, you're talking about the next level. The individuals that are in the heavens. In the highest heavens. In deep outer space. Where the space aliens aren't allowed to go anymore. Even though they, at one time, may have been in a certain part of what we call outer space. But I don't think they had the ability to go just any place they wanted to go. I don't know, maybe that's not so, I don't know. Doesn't matter. I can't remember T&O talking about that, so I should stay away from it. So that really puts a perspective. So that puts a good perspective on. Now this generator of life. I'm just going to synopsize it that way, which is a wife in the sense that. Well, I'm not going to go there. Anybody can see it. T decided to take a female vehicle for a reason, and if you want to look at, but she wasn't as a midwife. Maybe that's the best way to look at it, because it's a generator of life. So the midwife is a big part of that, especially with the next level birth, because without a midwife, you don't get born. So that's what that kind of seems to relate to. Anyway, so this person is clothed. Now, whenever it says clothed, it means to throw all around, and Doe even said that in, he didn't define that, but he talked about how his vehicle was wrapped around his soul. I think in the Beyond Human tapes. That's where I remember hearing it, I think. Which can be searched for, I think he said wraparound. So you can search that through the Heaven's Gate book. And for those that need the text of that, I can send it to them if they want it. The text of the Heaven's Gate book. Just give me an email address. Anyway, so clothed means that this generator of life is going to be wrapping something around themselves, their self being their soul, because that's who they really are. They're not the vehicles. Even in the next level, they wear vehicles. Tien Do talked about them. Tien Do talked about that he put his vehicle in a closet. He said that early on in '76, before he came. And he said that T had the ability to have more than one vehicle, because T had grown that much. So, but now they're saying that clothed, wrap around, array, cast about, put on, and Doe talked about that vehicles in the next level were put on just the same way as a diver might put on a diving bell, or a spaceman would put on a spacesuit. But in the next level, it's not for that. Well, maybe it can be for a short duration. I guess it depends on your task and what that, but for the next level, it might. Who knows what the time frame might be, because they don't measure things by hours and minutes and seconds or cycles of the planet. Tien Do said that they measure by events. And I don't believe they elaborated any more on that. But their time was an event. So, so this individual was putting on a vehicle that was by implication a ray. Tien Do said very early on that there was yeah, that's right, they said that. I believe I remember that. I'll tell you what it is in a second. But I think T said that there was a ray being focused on the planet at this time from the distant heavens. They also said it as a light. They said there was a light from the distant heavens shining on the planet. Well, also, this by implication is saying alternative is the sun, and by implication light. And you know how it said that Jesus was going to come like lightning that would be seen from east to west? Well, that word light that's used in that Jesus example was from the root of aster, which means star. So it means a star-like light. And so what is a comet? And Comet Kohoutek, Tien Do always said, was when they were in St. Louis. And when their car died, and they ended up using the credit card to rent a car. And that's what actually became their subduing by the press. Being shot down by the press because of doing that. that Doe became a felon, even though they dropped the charges against him when they got their car back, the rental car company. And but the prosecutor knew that they had a strange story. I mean, they gave Tibetan names because Nor Bu-chin was somebody they met at that time in 1973, and he gave them Tibetan names, and they gave those Tibetan names to the police. And I don't know what else they said, but Doe felt like because of their strange story, the prosecutor knew that he could make some points for a re-election by, prosecuting a wacky person, what he thought was a wacky person. And Doe at the time was, still awakening, so he was questioning his own sanity. Even though when he ended up going to the psychological examination that the jail gave him when they released him, and didn't want him to hook up with T again. I forgot how that came down, though, how that was. Doe did talk about that, I think. That they made him take a psychological evaluation before they let him out of jail. After he served 6 months, and it would have been a 4-month sentence. So he copped a plea after 6 months when they were talking about bringing it to trial, instead of going to trial and getting another sentence potentially from that. So he copped a plea and just got off with time served. So because of that, he became a felon when they really didn't have any charges against him before, because the company, just dropped the charges. So he probably would have won the trial, but he didn't want to take that chance because they knew it was a crazy story that they heard about them. So anyway, so that's why Doe said with irony that he passed the psychological evaluation even though they hadn't passed, where he didn't question his sanity. And that got quoted on Inside Edition. That's the only thing they said about it. He made me repeat it 3 times. And, what am I going to say? The whole thing over and over again? Because I gave him the whole story about how they got arrested and everything that led up to the St. Louis event. I mean, when he was in jail in St. Louis and when he got out and when he thought that about himself. He didn't continue to have that that sense about himself. I mean, I'm not saying that he never had the thought of, wow, this is insane, this is kind of crazy. Knowing how humans would respond to it, I still have that experience to where, I feel like I'm insane to believe all this. I haven't had it in a long time, but I know when I was first reawakening, I would watch a video of Doe, and I would think, oh my gosh, this is so bizarre. And I would even have a sense of the thought that, I can't believe that. Do I believe that? Is that right? Is that true? That's not true. I mean, I didn't actually hear those thoughts, but I just had those feelings. And I had a little bit of those thoughts. But as T and Doe always said, we're not responsible for the thoughts we have. We're responsible for the thoughts we entertain. Now, even hearing a thought can be entertaining a thought. Because I learned in the group that I was able to stop certain thoughts from even registering as thoughts. It's like reading a sentence and you know the whole sentence before you have to read it all. And so when you hear the first few words and you get the gist of the sentence, you cut it off and you don't actually let your brain even register the rest of that those words in that thought. And then you can get to the place, which I also experienced, to where you have the feeling and the sense of the thought, and you cut it off before it even becomes a thought. Of course, when T pulled away some of the mind that they gave me, then I had no ability that I was aware of. I didn't sense that I had the ability to even ask for help from T and Do. Well, before that, I asked them for help all the time with stuff. In my silence, and but I didn't really put into effect all the lessons to the degree that I could have all those years, and so I was tardy, and I didn't know it. Well, I knew it, but I didn't want to admit it, and I didn't want to talk about the details that showed that I was tardy. I've talked about that in past videos, so you can, if you're interested, I want to get through at least this one verse for this video. So, clothed with the sun, clothed with light, clothed with a ray. In other words, her body was going to be the instrument of the light, wrapped around the soul that was the producer of the light, the generator of the light. Well, or the chain, I should say it that way. The chain or the pipe. Tiendo also compared themselves to pipes, and they wanted those pipes to be clear, so that the only thing that was coming through the pipeline was the mind from their older members. They didn't want any of their influence in there, you know, like I do. Like I put my influence in there. And whether or not it's part of the, it's not necessarily, it's not wrong that your influence is in there, but we shouldn't. It depends on what that influence is, and when I say influence, I'm not talking about discarnates, even though discarnates may be related to that. That's not the only way we have thoughts. It's the Luciferians can also send thought forms to us, and there can be thought forms lingering in places, and we can pick up on those thoughts that are in those places. Like Tiendo had a little game, well, students of Tiendo described a little game they played where they went to a supermarket and they would go to a certain item on the shelf and have a focus on, you know, pay attention to it, read it, or whatever they did to it, you know, to put their minds on that item. And then they'd leave that aisle, and then they'd kind of like look around. When they would see somebody going down that aisle, they would look to see where they stopped. And I guess a number of times they stopped right at that same exact item and looked at it. And they didn't, you know, describe it any more detail than that. So, but they described that. I think maybe that was in Rio's book that was described. And I trust that it sounds like, you know, kind of silliness that next level members might do. Because they have their own forms of fun. It's not the same kind of fun as humans have. And it's not fun that hurts anybody, like humans do. And so the moon is under her feet. Under T's feet. Under the generator of life's feet. Now, feet has to do with footstool, but it also has to do with referring to this individual, that they're clothed with the light, but the lesser light, the moon, or the moon actually represents the female and actually represents mother in astrology, astrological terms, and is considered to be the lesser light to the sun. The lesser light is her footstool. The moon is under this individual's footstool, or under meaning beneath, from Greek word hupato, which is from hupo, which is under, talking about a place. It's not saying it's anything else but a place. So they're talking about the moon is in place as her footstool, as a footstool. Beneath, or with verbs, the agency. The moon is the agency of the footstool. The footstool is the agency. Or the moon is among the footstool. Maybe there's, both are considered to be footstools. And a footstool in the Bible actually was spoken of as, well, this is in the Bible, but I think in the Old Testament as, well, Doe talked about it as a stepping stone. He didn't use the word footstool that I'm aware of, but he did say that the earth and the human kingdom was a stepping stone into the next level. And it's done to be on human tapes. But it's saying that in a comparative, it retains the same general application, especially of inferior position or condition, and especially covertly or moderately. So it's a convert, and this is under, what do I say, under. So the moon is covertly a footstool. The individual's footstool, her, because they're saying her because it's related to autos, as a generator, the subject of all this. So, since the moon is the secondary light under the sun, I think the moon is talking about Doe here. And that Doe is who is lesser to T, because Doe is a younger member to T. T is Doe's older member. And that you could also say her is they. See, they? The sun and the moon's footstool. Here, if you actually looked at these as being personifications, this was indicated that it was clothed sun. So the woman is a clothed sun, S-U-N. So a clothed light. And the moon is another planetary body, would then be Do. And they're working undercover. They always said that they were an undercover operation. And they also had a cover-up. They had the biggest cover-up, which was the reason why this information here was to be kept secret until this time, when it could all be explained, which I believe is the task that was made available to me, and I'm attempting to facilitate. And there could be a number of people that are doing that that I don't know about. And then upon the head, this individual, or even her, could again be they, and upon their head, head is from the word head. Kephale, from the primary captu, in the sense of seizing. Oh, well, that's interesting, because you could say that they seized their vehicles, their heads, because that could probably be plural as well. I don't know what captu is. It doesn't have a link to it, so I don't want to take the time right now to search for it. But you can see it's related, the same prefix here is related to actually a head, a wound in the head, strike on the head. So it's talking about a vehicle head. And so there's a vehicle's head that is taken hold of. See, there is as the part most readily taken hold of. And Tiendo always said that. They said that our primary task as members of the next level, student members of the next level, was to take over a human vehicle. And another big part of the task was to deposit thoughts. And that's continuing right now, by telling, people what I know that I heard from Tiendo, and how the prophecies, what they said before 2,000 years ago, how they're being fulfilled by Tiendo, and why all these interpretations only make sense if you relate them to Tiendo's events and what they said and did. Then they make the most sense. And that head was going to have a crown of 12 stars. And that's where it says in Revelation 6, Revelation 6:2 says, "And I saw and behold a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow," which has to do with a litter and a covenant. The litter that had a covenant, which is the children of Israel, because Israel meant overcomer, according to Do. So it's the overcomers that had a covenant. That's what their overcoming is their vows to overcome the world. Of course, according to the lessons at the time, which during the Moses time was what Tiendo called toddler lessons, like 5th and 6th graders. They said in the UFO Extraordinary book, UFO Missionaries Extraordinary. And it says that a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. So, I mean, they wouldn't have said conquer twice, because conquer and overcome is the same word. And it also means have victory over. It also means prevail against. Just like the word Jehovah. No, the word Israel, though said it was overcomer, but it also means, if you actually look at the Hebrew interpretation, it says prevail as Jehovah. In other words, prevail, overcome your vehicle through or as in the way of that Jehovah gives us. You'll remember, give us. So, and a crown is when you've accomplished your task and you're awarded a next level vehicle. It doesn't necessarily mean that at that moment you're awarded a next level vehicle, but this is saying that they are birthing a crown to 12 stars, and stars is also referred to as people, individuals that, like even that fell. Like it even says in Revelation chapter 12, where I'm going to get to later in this broadcast. I'll show you right now quickly, just so it's established. 12. It says here, 12:4, and his tail, speaking about the dragon who is Lucifer, it says that his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. Well, Christians say that, some Christians say, quite a few actually, say that the woman is actually the church. But the church is the believers, or the overcomers actually. Only the overcomers are the church. But believers are in the first stage of overcoming, okay? The very, very, very primary, infantile first stage. But it's enough to believe, is enough to get you saved, I believe. At least it was 2,000 years ago. I don't know now if belief alone is enough to get you saved, your spirit or soul saved for the next opportunity to graduate, but or to take another rung on the ladder towards graduation. But so the third part of the stars, I think Doe said that he felt this meant that a third of that classroom from previous time had fallen, and may have fallen again when they didn't take the opportunity that Tiendo presented them with to come to Earth and sacrifice their existing vehicles, infant vehicles, that had elementary tasks as like a watcher, someone that did observation only, like Enoch talked about, didn't forfeit the physical vehicles that were grown for them, that Doe said came from all different places in the heavens, different planets in the heavens, which is what made them space aliens, where they really only became aliens at that point when they decided not to partake in this program to become adults in the next level. So apparently a third of that class fell away, and the program now was to replace their tasks. Tiendo said that. So I'm not going to go through any more details about that verse. And I guess and the number 12, of course, has to do with, all the references to 12 and how there are 12 pillars on New Jerusalem, which is the new spacecraft that will be put into place as a part of the new Earth when the old spacecraft, Heaven, is removed, which takes place, is talked about in Revelation chapter 6, towards the end, during the sixth seal, though, not even before. Well, I don't know if it says it happens then. I don't know. I have to think about what the prophecy says about that, because I can't. Tiendo, I don't think we've talked about it. But it would look like there were going to only be 12 individuals that actually received next level vehicles. Maybe not. Maybe that doubled now. Maybe that might make more sense, that there were 12 individuals that received the crown for graduating to infant level vehicles during their task with Jesus. They gave their lives and followed their instructions to the best of their ability, and gave their lives for the sake of kingdom of God, kingdom of heaven, for Jesus, for their older member. And because of that, Do said he was going to prepare a place for them. And preparing a place for them, since the next level is full of individuals that have tasks, must mean that they were assigned a next level vehicle that was grown for them. But I think might not have been an adult vehicle, although some of them may have been adult vehicles. Maybe the 4 living beings received adult vehicles. It's not specifying here. They would still be called stars. And I think that the 4 living beings also throw down their vehicles, as it says in another place in Revelation. So which I'll get to another time. But I think I've gone through this, I think fairly okay. So I'm going to call it a night. Good night.